On tonight's summary of the Israel-Hamas War, day 224. The IDF recovers the bodies of 3 hostages from the Gaza Strip. The military announces that the 3 were killed on October 7th, although only one of them had been confirmed dead in the past 7 months. The most intensive fighting in the past 5 months reported in the northern parts of Gaza as the IDF continues its operation in Jabalia refugee camp. The maritime corridor is inaugurated in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, aiming to ferry humanitarian aid through the EU and Cyprus directly into Gaza. Major escalations between the IDF and Hezbollah, barrages of over 50 missiles fired by the organization as the IDF assassinates prominent figures in the Lebanese fighting groups. The International Court of Justice hears evidence from both South Africa and Israel as the court debates South Africa's request for emergency injunctions ordering Israel to stop the war and withdraw from the Gaza Strip. Hello everyone, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the latest highlights from the Israel-Hamas War. It's currently the evening of May 17th, 2024 in the United States, the morning of May 18th, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, on May 17th, the bodies of 3 hostages were recovered from the Gaza Strip by the IDF. In a joint operation of the IDF and the Shabak, the military retrieved the bodies of Shani Luke, Itzik Galarenter, and Amit Buskila. Shani Luke was confirmed dead already after the October 7th attack, and her picture, seen thrown half naked, being taken into the Gaza Strip in the back of a jeep with Hamas fighters, went viral throughout the world. Itzik Galarenter, a 56-year-old Israeli from the town of Irus, and Amit Buskila, a 28-year-old Israeli from Ashdod, were until now considered live hostages. However, the IDF stated today that it has verified evidence that the 2 were killed on October 7th and that their bodies were kidnapped back to the Gaza Strip. According to the reports, the information about the whereabouts of the 3 bodies was gleaned from interrogations of Hamas members that were arrested in the Gaza Strip during the military operation, although it was not reported where in Gaza the bodies were retrieved from. In addition to that, yesterday the IDF reported that it informed the family members of hostages from Thailand that evidence has emerged that the 2 hostages were killed on October 7th and their bodies are being held in the Gaza Strip. With all that information, the number of hostages remaining in the Gaza Strip is now updated to 129, out of which 39 have been confirmed dead by the IDF. Again, according to reports both in the Wall Street Journal and in other news outlets throughout the world, both the Israeli intelligence and the United States intelligence may suspect that at least another 18 to 20 hostages are in fact dead. However, the official number that Israel is stating is 39 out of the 129 that remain in captivity. Moving on to the Gaza Strip, there were barrages of rockets and mortars fired from the Gaza Strip targeting the southern parts of Israel in the last 48 hours. Rockets targeted the areas of Miflasim, near Kerem Shalom. There were also several barrages towards Sderot, and a lot of rockets were intercepted. Rockets also targeted the areas of Ivim, near Erez, Yad Mordechai, Nativ Asara, as well as Kremye. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, some of the most intense fighting in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip since December have been reported in the last 48 hours, specifically in the area of the Jabalia refugee camp. The IDF operation in the area is now in its 3rd day, and major gun battles were reported as the IDF is going, according to reports, alley by alley, attempting to dismantle Hamas's rebuilt network. Sources within the IDF were quoted as stating that Hamas has regained complete control of Jabalia since the operation was concluded in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip in December. I remind everyone that between October 28th and the middle of December, the IDF carried out its operation in the northern parts of the Strip. Since then, the IDF withdrew from the northern parts of the Gaza Strip and stated that the area was cleared of Hamas. However, given that there is no other infrastructure or governing apparatus put into place, Hamas has gradually regained control. Since then, the IDF has been carrying out these more localized operations. Now this one is going on in Jabalia, according to reports both by Palestinians on the ground as well as by the IDF. This is the most intensive fighting the north of the Gaza has seen in the last 5 months. In addition to this, the IDF completed its evacuation of the Zaytun area, another area that the IDF is carrying out an operation in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, following a week of its operation in that region. Among others, the military reported that 100 airstrikes were carried out in the areas of Zaytun, and that the IDF destroyed Hamas headquarters that was located in the school, and that there were substantial gun battles that were carried out throughout the area. In the central parts of the Gaza Strip, there were substantial airstrikes that were reported in the last 48 hours, specifically in the areas around the Al-Nusayrat refugee camp, and specifically in the last 24 hours, targeting the northern parts of the camp. The IDF has not carried out a full invasion of Al-Nusayrat refugee camp or the other refugee camps in the central parts of the Gaza Strip, Al-Bureij, Al-Maghazi. Possibly this is paving the way for that invasion, remains to be seen. In the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, on May 16th, the IDF reported locating a launching site of long-range rockets that was located in Rafah. According to reports, the site was primed and ready to launch towards central Israel. The IDF reported destroying that launching site. On May 17th, there were major airstrikes that Palestinians reported were being carried out in the El Janaina area of Rafah. This is an area that it was reported that the IDF is expanding its operation to in the last several days. Likely, these airstrikes are being carried out in anticipation of that ground invasion. In addition, while the IDF continues its activity in the southeastern parts of the city, the White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby stated on May 17th that Israel has assured the United States that it will not launch a complete invasion of Rafah without first consulting with the U.S. The United States National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is traveling to the Middle East on this weekend. He's going to begin his tour in Saudi Arabia and then travel to Israel. Presumably, large parts of his talks are going to revolve around the Rafah invasion. Referring to the impending IDF invasion of Rafah, the Al-Qassam spokesperson Abu Ubaida also put out a recorded message on May 17th, stating with regards to this invasion, I quote, "Despite our full desire to stop the aggression against our people, we are prepared for a long battle of attrition against the enemy, dragging them into a swamp where they will gain nothing but the death of their soldiers and the capture of their officers." He added, "This is not because we are a great power, but because we are the people of this land and its rightful owners." Again, so Hamas is saying while it is aspiring for a ceasefire, it is fully prepared for the IDF's invasion of Rafah. Regarding casualties, 7 IDF soldiers were reported killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 48 hours. Of these, 6 of them were killed in IDF misfires. That is, in one instance, 5 IDF soldiers were killed when IDF tanks misidentified them as Palestinian armed militants and fired upon them. And in another instance, another soldier was killed when a mortar that he was trying to fire into the Jabalia refugee camp misfired. With that, the total number of IDF soldiers killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began is now 280. 11 IDF soldiers reported injured in the Gaza Strip in the last 48 hours, bringing the total number of IDF soldiers injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began to 1,723. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 70 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 48 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 35,303. 79,261 Palestinians are reported injured in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Since I've been asked about this in several comments, I am again going to clarify that the updated numbers that the United Nations has started citing with regards to casualties in the Gaza Strip is an adjustment with regards to the proportion of women and children that have been killed in the Gaza Strip out of the total number of Palestinians that have been killed. The adjustment is a result of the fact that the United Nations has stopped citing the Palestinian Communications Ministry in the Gaza Strip, which is known to be far less reliable and somewhat of a propaganda machine of Hamas, and instead has started citing the Palestinian Health Ministry, which is the same numbers that I cite, which is seen as being much more reliable. Regardless of who they are citing, however, the total number of Palestinians that have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began has not been updated and has not changed. What has changed is the proportion within those who are killed. How many are women and children? How many are men? Some of these are militants or not. I do not report on those numbers because, as I stated, I consider a lot of those reportings to be unreliable. However, the total number of Palestinians that are killed has not been updated and is currently 35,303. Moving on to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. Amidst growing reports of hunger that is again beginning to increase in the Gaza Strip, following the closure of the Rafah crossing, Egypt rejected on May 16th an Israeli proposal for joint custody over the crossing once the IDF withdraws from the area. Egypt put out a statement stating that only Palestinian authorities can control the Gaza side of the crossing, i.e., Israel has tried to propose to Egypt that the IDF will withdraw from the area, but there will be joint custody of the crossing. Egypt has refused. A delegation of the Shabak, headed by the IDF General Rassan Alian, that is the coordinator of IDF activity in the Palestinian territories, has been in Egypt in the last several days attempting to negotiate the reactivation of the crossing. However, thus far, to no avail. In turn, on May 17th, the floating pier the United States has been constructing in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip was officially inaugurated, and the first aid trucks ferried humanitarian aid brought in from Cyprus through the pier. The entire cost of the project is estimated at roughly $320 million US, and the way it is going to operate includes a combination of different actors. The humanitarian aid, which is going to be largely donated by the United Arab Emirates, however other countries are also participating, is going to be loaded in Cyprus after it is inspected by the IDF and or other agents that Israel appoints. It is then going to be ferried to a floating platform that is several miles off the coast of Gaza. From there, the equipment is going to be loaded onto trucks, which will then be boarded onto special ships that will ferry them to the pier that is connected to the shore. From there, the World Food Program is going to take over the distribution in the Gaza Strip. The shore pier is going to be secured by the IDF, while the operation at sea is staffed by the United States. Responding to the opening of this pier, Hamas put out an announcement stating that the pier is an attempt of the United States to hide its implication in the crimes in Gaza, demanding that all foreign forces leave the Gaza Strip immediately. Moving on to the West Bank, on May 16th, the IDF reported that in the incident that occurred the day before that, in which Israeli settlers attacked a Palestinian truck driver on suspicion that he was ferrying aid to the Gaza Strip from Jordan through the West Bank to the Gaza Strip, that in addition to the attacking of the Palestinian truck driver, several IDF soldiers were also attacked by the settlers as well, and 3 of them were lightly injured. According to the report, the IDF arrived on scene and tried to offer medical assistance to the Palestinian driver who was injured in the settler attack. However, the soldiers were in turn attacked by the settlers. A very similar incident occurred near the Kochav HaShachar settlement on May 17th, when a Palestinian truck was also stopped and the driver was attacked and beaten, with settlers suspecting that he was ferrying humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. Similar to the event in the previous day, several IDF soldiers were also attacked as they attempted to provide aid to the driver. In addition to this, another such incident occurred near the Tapuach juncture, where settlers also reportedly threw stones at Palestinian cars in addition to attacking Palestinian trucks. In the first incident, they reported no arrests were made. In the second incident, 4 Israeli settlers were reportedly detained. However, they were released several hours later. Other news related to the West Bank, Canada joined the United States and the United Kingdom, imposing sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers who are accused of carrying out violence against Palestinians. These are 4 settlers that have been already on the sanction list of both the United States and the United Kingdom. Regarding IDF activity in the West Bank in the last 48 hours, in addition to different operations that were carried out throughout the West Bank, an unusual airstrike was reported being carried out in Jenin on May 17th. The attacks, involving both warplanes and helicopters, assassinated Islam Hamaisa, who was reportedly held up at a terror headquarters in the city. According to the Israeli Shabak, Hamaisa was a prominent figure in the Jenin Brigades, that is a local outfit of Palestinians in the West Bank, and was very involved in orchestrating violence in the region in the last several months. According to Palestinian sources, 8 more people were injured in that attack. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, there's ongoing substantial escalations that are going on between the IDF and Hezbollah in the last 48 hours. Regarding rockets and missiles, on May 16th, among others, there were substantial drone attacks that were carried out throughout the Upper Galilee, targeting the area of Kiryat Shmona and throughout the entire region. In addition, there were also drone alerts throughout the Western Galilee, including the areas of Shlomi, Rosh Nikra, Adamit, Batzat, and other areas. Rocket barrages were also fired throughout the Western Galilee and Upper Galilee. On May 17th, there were more escalations than in the previous day, with major barrages of rockets fired throughout the day, including in some cases simultaneous launches of over 70 projectiles. Hezbollah stated that in one of the barrages, over 50 Katyusha missiles were fired targeting a military base in the areas of Katsrin. There was also a direct hit of a rocket in a house in Maroma Galil, and missiles were also fired towards areas of Mount Meron. Attacks were also noted against IDF outposts in the areas of Hardov, and drones were also intercepted in the areas around Metula. In addition to this, rockets were also fired from Lebanon towards areas of the Golan Heights, with major fires breaking out in the area. Regarding IDF activity, on May 16th, there were many IDF attacks reported. Among others, the IDF targeted Hezbollah operatives in the areas of Kana, and there were also substantial attacks that were noted throughout the area, as well as targeting Hezbollah structures and infrastructure in the areas of Ita Sha'ab, lookout outposts that were targeting in the areas of Misel Jabel, and Hezbollah structures in the areas of Kila village, Anakora, and the village of Hula. On May 17th, the IDF reportedly attacked launching sites in the areas of Dir Sirin, as well as Hezbollah targets in the Hammam village and in the areas of El Adaisa. There were also unusual airstrikes that were reported being carried out in the El Najagaria village, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure that is reportedly associated with the movement's air defense capabilities. The IDF stated that that attack in El Najagaria specifically was a retaliation to the downing of an IDF spy balloon that occurred several days ago. In addition to this, there were several assassinations that were reported in the areas of Lebanon in the last 48 hours. On May 16th, Hezbollah stated that one of those killed in the Kana attack was Dr. Muhammad Hassan Ali Fares, who's a robotics PhD from Tehran University who specialized in locating unseen targets. It was not reported specifically by the IDF if he was a target of that attack. However, the fact that Hezbollah put out that statement lends a lot of credence to the fact that he was a target of that assassination. Between May 16th and May 17th, the attack was carried out in the areas of the El Najariya region, along the coast of Lebanon, the northern parts of Sor, some 30 kilometers north of the Israeli border. These are some of the videos and images that emerged from that attack. Al Arabiya reported that the target was Hussein Mahdi, who is a prominent field commander of Hezbollah, who was assassinated in that attack targeting his car. In addition to this, on May 17th, the IDF carried out an attack in the Majd al-Anjar region, killing a prominent leader of the Jama'a Islamiyah movement in Lebanon. The leader, Sharhavil Ali al-Said, is described by the IDF as being one of the main orchestrators of terror activity in the organization. Earlier in the day, Hamas also put out a statement about his death, referring to al-Said as the leader of Jama'a Islamiyah. The attack itself took place deep in Lebanon along the Syrian border. It's important to note that Jama'a Islamiyah is not the biggest organization in Lebanon. However, it is one of the organizations that has been growing in its prominence in carrying out different attacks against the IDF. Since October 7th, it has specifically tried to carry out several cross-border insurgencies. Some political developments from the last 48 hours. In a significant development, on May 16th, Spain announced that it is denying access to the ship Marian Danica from docking in a port in the country. Spain stated that the ship is carrying weapons and explosives from India to Israel. The authorities stated that this is the official policy, with Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Madres stating that the government's policy is to deny any ship that is carrying weapons to Israel and wants to dock in Spain. This is very significant when we consider the geographical location of Spain. Ships that are destined for Israel have largely been blocked off from traveling towards the Mediterranean through the Red Sea as a result of Houthi attacks. Accordingly, they are required to go the long path around Africa and enter the Mediterranean through Spain. If it is true that Spain is also going to start in some ways denying the access of ships from crossing into the region, this is going to be a major escalation with regards to ships and weapons shipments that are destined towards Israel. Other news, South Africa and Israel each presented their case in the International Court of Justice on Thursday and Friday, and the court is currently debating South Africa's request for immediate emergency injunctions ordering Israel to stop the war. Among others, South Africa presented the statements of Israel's Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who stated in a holiday celebration in Israel that, quote, Rafah equals total destruction, adding, according to South Africa, that the Rafah invasion is the culmination of the genocide in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli team presented evidence of Hamas terror activity in Rafah, including identifying substantial tunnel networks in Rafah and the fact that hostages are held in the area, adding that Israel is acting in self-defense against Hamas in an effort to retrieve its hostages. Right now, the court is going to debate South Africa's request. According to different sources, it is likely that the court will give a response already in the coming days as a result of the fact that this is a request for an emergency injunction. We will see how that develops. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, the political turmoil in Israel following the statements of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant about Gaza's future have continued in the last 48 hours. Gallant has become more explicit in the last several days, stating that while he is not necessarily advocating for the Palestinian Authority to be returned to Gaza, there has to be a local Palestinian government that is placed in the region in order to avoid direct military occupation of the IDF. He stated that such an occupation would be immensely costly in human lives and military resources for the IDF, specifically citing the amount of soldiers that are going to be required to be stationed in the Gaza Strip, diverting them from other activities. According to reports, Gallant added in a cabinet meeting that he was a soldier in Rafah 30 years ago, and that he knows the toll of such active occupation will take, adding, quote, eventually we will turn it over to the Palestinians anyway, end quote. Responding to the rising pressure, reports also indicated that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has agreed to have a serious debate in cabinet about transferring local power to Palestinian elements that are not part of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Right now, the situation is Netanyahu is under monumental pressure from more hawkish right-wing elements within his government to denounce Gallant, and some elements are even calling upon him to fire Gallant, whereas in turn, other elements within his government are also stating that Gallant actually speaks the truth and that a serious debate has to be had about what is going to happen in the future of the Gaza Strip. Remains to be seen how he navigates that. Before I conclude, I will again remind everyone that I am traveling in the next week. My reports are going to be a lot shorter and less regular. If there are any major developments, I'll try to upload short summaries as they come out. If you find these reports informative, do also please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when reports come out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Those are my highlights from the last 48 hours. Thanks for watching.